And among the people asking these questions, Congressman Mark Green from Tennessee's 7th Congressional District. He's the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee and joins us now. Congressman, good to have you back with us, sir.
Vince, always good to be with you.
Will Kim Cheatle, the head of the Secret Service, be testifying before your committee, sir?
We have sent a request and not heard back. When I talked to her on Sunday, the day after the event, she said she'd be transparent and come to anything we asked her to come to. She did. I like going on a little honey route, so I ask if I don't get it, I'll do a subpoena. Mm-hmm. Comer subpoenaed from the beginning, from the get-go, and I think he's got her on Monday. Monday, we will be visiting the site. So my Homeland Security team is going to go to Pennsylvania and look at the ground, walk the ground, get up on the buildings ourselves. But our goal is to have her come on Tuesday. Hopefully she'll say yes, and we don't have to issue the subpoena. But immediately after that hearing, we are holding a hearing with the local law enforcement that was on the ground there, state police, et cetera. So we'll at least have that piece.
That hearing will be Tuesday afternoon? Is that what I'm hearing, or is it going to be?
Yeah, that's Tuesday afternoon. Or Tuesday. The time is all dependent upon, what the previous hearing is. It's going to be what we call round 2, but it'll be one hearing.
Got it. So you'll speak first to the Secret Service and then to local law enforcement and see if you can get the story straightened out. When you go Monday to visit the site in Butler, Pennsylvania, will there be officials there to help guide you through what you're looking at?
Yeah, the local officials have agreed. The Tennessee or the Pennsylvania state police have been incredible. I mean, they have been so good to work with and are set. So has the FBI, to be completely honest. I posed the question when I talked to the deputy director. I think it was on Monday, and I said, "Hey, can we go to the site?" He said, "As soon as it's not a active crime scene, yes."
Yes.
And so we've talked to them every single day, and the FBI is like, "Okay, we're clearing it today," meaning today, and you guys can get in there on Monday.
One of the things that I've been focusing on this week is when the various radio calls were made by police officers. I would like to know specifically what time radio calls were made, because it seems to me that it would reveal to us quite a bit about just how long President Trump was vulnerable on that stage. We heard from local officials that the cops who tried to climb up to the roof to confront the shooter, they saw him, the one cop, he fell down, and then the two of them, while they were on the ground, 2 police officers, one who was boosting, the other one who fell, they made radio calls at that very moment to warn everybody that there was a shooter there. Those radio calls must exist somewhere, Congressman. I would imagine if they're local cops, they have scanner audio.
Yeah, we've requested all the audio from both Secret Service, all the networks. We want the transcripts of all those.
Yeah, that's going to give us a lot of information, because yesterday. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and the deadline for that request is tomorrow. The subpoenas have already been filed, or have already been drawn up, and we will file them immediately after the deadline, within a minute.
Okay. Yeah, we'll learn a lot from that if you get a hold of it, God willing, you do.
Yeah.
The other piece here is we heard yesterday that the Secret Service gave at least some sort of bare bones brief to United States senators broadly, and in that brief, the Secret Service seemed to indicate that they had their eyes on this shooter for nearly an hour, and then specifically a 20-minute window ahead of President Trump being shot, where the snipers were looking at this guy on the roof. Can you begin to make sense of how a guy could be on a roof like that and they allow President Trump on that stage?
So the coordination between the local law enforcement and the Secret Service is one of the biggest issues here. And immediately after we got word of this, we started mapping it out, the intel that came from the nation-state actor, and we put it into phases. So, but one of the key ingredients is actions on the objective. And sorry for me speaking like a military guy, but I'm an flight surgeon for a special operations unit. I was an Army Ranger infantry officer for 10 years.
Right on.
So the actions on the objective, were there good rules of engagement and communications between Secret Service and law enforcement? Law enforcement, 62 minutes before shots rang out, identified this individual as a suspicious person. We can't tell if they actually had him detained for a second, or if they just spotted him across the way, but they lost track of him. And so we had 62 minutes where there was a concern. What was the threshold to hold the event, to keep it from going forward? These are all the questions that we're going to put people under oath and get the answers to. Clearly that guy in the scope, why would they not act? Why would they not say, we need to hold the president, right? Those are questions that have to be asked. It is possible, and I was just thinking of this as you were asking the question. I suppose it is possible that they thought maybe that was a local law enforcement guy who hopped up there. I don't know, but you don't just hop up into another area without notifying, or you might get shot. So I can't imagine. One, the communications between these guys is critical. What that counter sniper was thinking as he was sitting there looking at that guy for 20 minutes, we got to get to the bottom of that.
That's
clearly.
Right. Well, 20 minutes is a lot of time because if it was 20 minutes, we checked the time yesterday, and I know, of course, your committee's looking at this really closely. If it was 20 minutes, that means it's about 10 minutes of time before President Trump gets on stage. And then Trump kind of walks across that stage for just a few minutes, and then he starts speaking, and he's only speaking for 6 minutes until he's shot. So that's a massive amount of time for that counter sniper, to deconflict who's on top of that roof, to make the call. Hey, who's standing up there?
Exactly. That's exactly right. There was plenty of time. It didn't happen. Why? Yeah. That's we got to put those guys under oath and ask them.
What's going on with the Secret Service director, Kim Cheatle? For her to come out in public and declare that one of the reasons the Secret Service agents weren't on that roof was because it was sloped, that's the most obvious lie I've heard in Washington in a while, and I've heard a lot of lies in Washington, but that's the most obvious one. I mean, we see Secret Service agents on sloped roofs all the time.
Yeah, the White House actually has a bigger pitch in places than that one. Look, I mean, that very clearly shows, at a minimum, incredible stupidity. Or she thinks that we're all stupid. I don't know, but that can't stand. And there are several other things I don't want to go into until we get her in front of the committee before I verify it. But that make me. I'm already kind of calling for her resignation. She's clearly not the right person for this job.
Of course. I mean, you're a military guy. You know how this works. If your organization screws up, and it screws up this spectacularly, you've got to go. I don't care what a nice boss you are. I don't care if you bring donuts every week. I don't care what the circumstances are. Your one job is to protect these guys. One of them was just shot in the head. So your time to go.
Yeah, I agree. It's sort of like the commander on the battlefield where troops' lives are at stake. I mean, you relieve the guy on the spot.
No question, and that's what she deserves. But in the meantime, so long as she's in the job, she can answer some of your questions. So give us, Congressman.
And even after, I mean, we can subpoena anybody. So we're going to get her to answer questions whether she's in the job or not.
Good. Yeah, that'd be great if you could get those answers. Congressman, what are the things that you're looking at right now that you could give us a sense that are really glaring to you in terms of looking at this entire event and saying, I need a clear answer on this and quickly?
Yeah, we'll go back to the phases, right, that I mentioned before. In the assessment phase, some team leader was sent out there to look at the ground and decide where to put people and which assets were necessary for the mission. So they decide to cover that building. This is in a conversation with me. Cheatle told me on Sunday that the 8 o'clock counter sniper was going to cover the top of that building. That's why there wasn't someone put on that building. Now, she didn't say anything in that call about the slope of the building. This is on Sunday. So, okay, the assessment guy made a decision to leave that top of that building unsecured or there wasn't a body on it.
Yeah.
Right. So if you look behind that building, though, there's this narrow alleyway, which a basic trainee soldier would know has to be observed continuously, or a bad guy can sneak up on you. If you want a sealed 360-degree perimeter, that has to be watched. The fact that there wasn't someone 24/7, every second of every minute of this operation, watching that blind spot is absolutely absurd. It is stupid, and I want to know who made that decision, and I want to know what their thinking was, just so I can understand. But that was a bad decision, and someone needs to be held accountable for that.
Right, and if you can't secure that location, wouldn't you put up a visual obstruction or something in order to keep a shooter from having a vantage point?
Well, you could do that too. Absolutely. You could also put a drone over it to watch it. I mean, keeping eyes on it isn't challenging. It was daylight. It was 6 p.m.
Yeah, no, it's madness. The other piece that I have questions about: 3 hours before the speech, the shooter apparently entered the secure area carrying a rangefinder. That's the reporting this week, and then walked around inside the secure area, then left, presumably to retrieve the gun. The next time he pops up, at least for the public, is on the roof.
They believe he had the gun there, hidden there. He came days before, or maybe a day before, and then he came earlier that morning. And then came back with the rangefinder, and then came the last time, as I understand it. Now, this gets a little cloudy, and I'm not looking at my notes exactly right now. But as I understand, he came a day before, cased the joint, came the next morning, and then came with the rangefinder through the magnetometers, and then came back again.
And you said he may have bunked the gun. Did he have the gun stored on the roof? Is that the belief?
Yeah, well, we don't really know, but it's anticipated that he hid the gun there somewhere.
And we don't know at what point he would have hid the gun, just sometime in advance.
In that advance time, yes. That's the suspicion. I can't say that that's verified, but I can say that's the suspicion, because how do you carry an AR through a magnetometer with Secret Service? I mean, that doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't. But my understanding is that building was outside of the magnetometer secured area, that it was outside the perimeter.
That's true. Someone, again, in that assessment team made the decision that would be outside the perimeter. So yes, in fact, that is the case. You're right.
And then there were multiple photos taken of him by law enforcement. One of the weird things about this is, one, obviously they've identified him as a suspicious person. So how did they allow this to happen? But two, did anyone talk to him? You mentioned early in our conversation that he may or may not have been detained at some point. Were there any law enforcement officers who had any conversations with this guy whatsoever, or were they just taking pictures of him from a distance?
So that's the question that I haven't gotten the answer to. And in the way they handle these calls from the White House, and the White House kind of managed the administration kind of managed the call that was yesterday. And you can't sit there and cross-examine kind of question. So the question of when they determined he was suspicious, was it an interaction with law enforcement where they're talking to him, or was this they spotted him across the crowd? So that's another thing I've got to get the detail on, but we'll be asking that question on Tuesday with the local guys, right? So we can ask them, who was it that saw the guy? Oh, okay. How did they interact? How did you lose track of him? Did you call Secret Service and they say not to detain him, and then he's let go, and then, okay, no, go get him? We've got to get a lot more detail on that.
Yeah, it's shocking how little we know at this point. Congressman Mark Green, the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee. Sir, thank you very much for taking some time. Best of luck as you dig.
Yeah, thanks for digging into it with us. Thank you.
Amen. Thanks for being on today.